Hello friends, my name is Aubrey. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy to have you all here with me today. So for this video, we are going to go over my third quarter wrap up. So we're going to talk about all of the books that I read in July, August, and September of this year. And I will say, work has been really just kind of overwhelming in some ways lately. And I've had a lot going on just with life in general, so I haven't read as many books. I feel like July and August were pretty good, and then September it just kind of fell off a bit. So we don't have a ton to talk about today. Unfortunately, I wish there was more. Also, I'm sorry, my bangs are kind of wet, so they're getting on my nerves. They're drying, but I have to get this filmed before I go to work, actually. But yes, so we are going to just go through each of the books. We're going to go through them in the order that I read them. So we will start with the first one, which I read first week of July, which was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. So this is a book about two characters, Alex, who is the son of the President of the United States, the first female president of the United States, and Henry, who is a Prince of England. And the two of them have a sort of rivalry. They don't really like each other much, particularly on Alex's part. So this book is from Alex's perspective. And they cause an incident at Henry's older brother's wedding. And because of this, Alex's mom is currently in the middle of her re-election campaign. So because of this incident, Alex is told to make nice with Henry, essentially, because of the public image, the negative public image that has come about because of this. I'm saying because of this a lot. So Alex and Henry are kind of forced to do these public appearances together, and they actually end up becoming quite close and getting to know one another, and it is a romance story, and it is just really, really wholesome. I mean, there are some spicy bits in here. Not super explicit. So by wholesome, I don't mean that this is like has no spice in it, because it does, but I mean that just the way that these characters get to know each other, the feelings that they develop, the way that Alex learns about Henry and sees that public image is not necessarily indicative of who a person is, and also just all the struggles that Henry is going with being a Prince of England and having to hide who he really is because of this public persona that he has to put on for the world. I loved this book a lot. I thought it was really sweet. There are a lot of poor choices being made by these kids, so Alex and Henry and their siblings and friends, because, they're young and they're making some choices as far as like partying and doing all these things that probably are not the most responsible thing to do, but ultimately they really truly care about each other, and the family dynamics in here are beautiful. Watching people learning about each other and standing up for each other and caring about each other, it was just really nice to read, and it just made me feel really happy. There are so many moments with the romance that I was literally giddy, like just squealing, kicking my feet, big smile on my face. I really, really liked it. I will say, I watched the movie as soon as I finished this book, and while I enjoyed the movie, I did not like it nearly as much as the book, because they changed a lot. And I actually talk about this in a video that I did where I talked about some books that I think deserve like new adaptations, and this was one of them. So I will link that down below if you're interested in my thoughts on that, because that's really all I'm going to say here today. But I just really like this book, and I think that Casey McQuiston is a very good writer. Alex's perspective felt very real. He felt like a real person. I mean, it is a little over the top at times, the things that they say and do and think, but I think that I was fine with that, because these are very intelligent, extraordinary people, young people in here. And I just really, really enjoyed the romance a lot. I just really did. And the friendships in here. So there is that one. That is the first one that I read in the third quarter. Then the next thing that I read are the first two volumes of I Hear the Sunspot by Yuki Fumino. So we have I Hear the Sunspot and Theory of Happiness. So again, this is a romance. We are following two two college students. We have Kohei, who is struggling with the loss of his hearing. So when he was in, I can't remember if it was middle school or high school, he actually woke up one morning and found that he was starting to lose his hearing, and it is a progressive condition. So his hearing has continuously gotten worse, and he struggles a lot with this, with making friends, with connecting with other people, because he has a hard time communicating, and he just feels like other people are not going to understand what he's going through and how he feels. So we have him, and then we have, what is his name? Taichi? Taichi. So Taichi, who is very outgoing, very outspoken, gets in trouble quite a bit because of that. So he's not afraid to say what he thinks and to stand up for things that he believes in, but he can come across to some people as a bit of a delinquent, I suppose. I really like Taichi. But Taichi runs into Kohei one day, and they form a friendship where, because Taichi very much just wants Kohei to be happy. And I just think that I've only read the first 2 volumes. There are several others that are currently out, and the series is ongoing. But I just really like all of the commentary on disability, specifically in these books, hearing loss and deafness, and hearing impaired people, and making things accessible for them, making sure that they are not left out and that they are happy, and fostering this understanding that everyone has a different experience in life, and just because someone else is different from you does not make them truly different inside, right? And it's just very, very sweet. There are some over dramatic conflicts in here between the two characters, just not communicating with each other. I don't like that trope at all, and it bothers me in this series, but I do really like the series. I like the characters. And I think that just watching Kohei learn to accept himself and realize that there are people out there who don't care that he can't hear well, who are it literally does not matter to them as far as like what they think of him, but it does matter to them in that they want him to be happy, and they want life to be easier for him, and him not to have to struggle with all of the things that he does, with taking notes in class and trying to have conversations with people who don't understand or don't care what he's going through. And it's just so sweet. I really, really like it. And again, I don't like the miscommunication. I don't like the lack of communication at times. That really bugs me. But I don't know how that's going to continue as the series goes on. But I do really like it. And the romance is cute once it comes into play, watching them realize their feelings for each other. It had a similar kind of feel at when the romance is first beginning as Satsuki and Miyano, which is one of my favorite manga, because Kohei knows how he feels, and Taichi knows how Kohei feels, but Taichi is unsure of how he feels about Kohei, and so he has to kind of figure that out. And I will also say the art style in the first volume was, I feel like, not my favorite at times as far as the characters' like faces personally and their expressions, but by the second volume it had improved a lot, so I really love that. I love seeing manga creators, mangaka I think is what they're called, I love seeing them kind of hone their skills and become better artists and better at their craft. And so Yuki Fumino has definitely improved between these 2 volumes, so I am looking forward to continuing this and seeing where it goes. But it does feel very much like a spring-summer read to me, so I'm probably not going to continue it until next year. We'll see. If the bug bites and I get the itch and have to keep going sooner than later, then, we'll just see. We'll just see what happens. The next thing that I read is a graphic novel. This is my favorite graphic novel series. It is one of my favorite podcasts, and every time a new volume is released, I plan ahead for release day so that I am not reading anything else and I can focus on this. And that is The Adventure Zone. So this is volume 6, The Suffering Game. And it is created by the McElroys who do the podcast. So this is based on the Adventure Zone podcast, which is a D&D podcast. And this is the first arc, the Balance arc. or the first story. I guess it has multiple arcs in it, but the first story, which is Balance. And in this first story, Clint McElroy is the DM or GM, and then his two brothers and his dad play the three main characters. So Travis plays Magnus Burnsides, Justin plays Taco from TV, and Clint plays Merle Highchurch. And the Adventure Zone is wonderful. Like I said, it is one of my favorite podcasts. I love Balance so much. I love these three boys, these three characters. And let me tell you, these guys are really talented in this podcast. Griffin is so talented at coming up with his story and working around his family, because obviously if you've never played D&D before, if you are the DM, the dungeon master, you're writing the story, but you have to be prepared for your story to be derailed at times because the players get to make choices and do things, and you have to be prepared for these different eventualities and be very good at thinking on your feet if they do something you don't expect. And these three guys are so good at like developing these characters that they play and staying in character. I love it so much. I will say the graphic novels do have some differences from the podcast. They do change a few things, and this is not appropriate for children. They make a number of lewd jokes. There is cursing, but it is just so fun. Their personalities are great. And the graphic novels are actually illustrated by Carrie Peach, I think is how you pronounce their name. But I can't say too much about this particular arc, like, because this is volume 6. But we are approaching the end. Essentially, what can I say that doesn't spoil it? I really recommend listening to the podcast and then reading the graphic novels, maybe like as you complete each arc, reading it, or finishing Balance altogether and then reading them. But we are approaching the end. I think there are only going to be maybe one or two more graphic novels, which is so exciting to see the conclusion in this beautiful form with this visual form. But it's also really sad for me because I have been getting these every year for 6 years now. So anyway, but we follow Magnus, Taco, and Merle as they go on this adventure in the first arc. They're trying to help Merle's cousin reclaim this treasure that is supposedly belongs to their family, and then things kind of spiral out of control from there. They get involved in this secret organization that's trying to save the world from these dangerous artifacts, and that's really all I want to say, because I didn't even know that much when I went into it, and I think that that's the best way to experience this, is just to find out with the characters what's happening. It's so fun. It is so fun. It is really funny, but also there are a lot of emotional moments, and I just love it so much. And as you can imagine from the title of this volume, The Suffering Game, the boys are going through it here. But I love it. I love it. And one of my favorite moments in the whole series happens in this volume, which, if you've listened to the podcast or read the graphic novels, you might be able to guess. It involves a certain raging, flaming, poisoning sort of doom. I think I said that correctly. I may have gotten the adjectives out of order, but I love that, because when that happened in the podcast, I was like going, like, as the characters were freaking out. So it's just so fun. I cannot recommend it enough. And next year, when the next volume is released, I'm going to once again drop everything and read it right away. Then I finally started a series that I have been wanting to start for ages, and that is The Cosmere by Brandon Sanderson. So I've said in previous videos, I like to read things in publication order. So if there is a series that is made up of a bunch of smaller series or a bunch of like interconnected standalones, I like to start at the beginning. And I know that there are lots of like recommended reading orders for The Cosmere, and I understand that, but personally I want to start where the author began writing, because I like to see how their story develops as they go. So I started with Elantris. This is the first Cosmere novel that Brandon Sanderson published, and I loved it so much. So much. Oh my gosh. So If you don't know, the Cosmere is this grand epic series that Brandon Sanderson is writing with all of these different standalones and smaller series that make it up. And by smaller, I mean Stormlight is huge, but smaller than the Cosmere as a whole. And they're all interconnected in that they all take place in the same universe. And from what I understand, because Elantris is the only one I've read so far, but from what I understand, there are a lot of points of connection between them. There is a character who you meet at the very, very end of this book, who I'm pretty sure is going to be in other books as well, kind of like a traveler sort of situation. But they take place on different planets in different in different places within this grand universe. And Elantris was my first foray into the Cosmere, and it was just so good. I understand now why so many people applaud Brandon Sanderson as just a master writer, because if this is the first one, I can only imagine how much better they get as they go and as he continues to develop as a writer. But in Elantris, we follow three main perspectives. We have Prince Rauden, who is the prince of the country of Arlan, and he wakes up at the very beginning of the story and has been taken by the Shaod or Shoud. I'm still a little unsure of pronunciation. I'd like a pronunciation guide, please, if anyone has one and would like to send it to me. I'd appreciate it. But he gets taken by the Shoud, or the Shaod, which turns you into an Elantrian. And this used to be a blessing because Elantrians were powerful and they could perform magic, and they were immortal in that they didn't die of old age, much like Tolkien's elves, whereas they can be killed, but they can't die of old age. And I think maybe I'm pretty sure they can't be killed. Or they could be killed. Sorry. But ever since the Rayod happened, which is this event that affected both the land and the people, it caused mass destruction in part of the country, and it basically destroyed Elantris, and that Elantris fell, and all of the Elantrians became basically living corpses in a way. And so ever since then, if the Shoud takes you, it has become a curse, because you also become this new type of Elantrian and are banished to Elantris, which is walled off and you can no longer leave. So this happens to Prince Rauden at the very beginning of this book, and so we follow him and his experience living in Elantris, meeting Elantrians, going from there. I don't want to say too much. I don't like spoiling things. But then our second perspective that we follow is Princess Serene of Teod, and she, at the beginning of this book, is on her way to Arlan to marry Prince Rauden. They have never met. They've communicated long distance, and this is a political marriage. But when Serene gets there, she learns that Prince Rauden has died. And so now she is thrust into this political landscape in a country that is not her home country, with people who, because in Teod, women are viewed equally with men in most ways. I'm going to put a caveat there because Serene did face some pushback for being very intelligent and outspoken. But in Arlan, it's worse. Women are basically considered to be, by a lot of people, including the king, particularly the king, as kind of like second class to men. So she finds herself in this situation and uncovers this very rotten political system. But she also finds some people who are trying to push back against that. And then our third perspective is Hrathen. And Hrathen comes from, is it Fjorden? I think is the name. Fjordell. Is Fjorden the country? I don't remember. He comes from the city of Fjordell, which has a very different religion than is practiced in Teod and Arlan. And his job is to try to convert people to his religion. So it is very much like we conquer you, we take over you, you do what we say, you follow the religion that we believe. But Hrathen is a very complex antagonist. I don't really want to say too much because I thought it was fascinating to learn about him as you go through this story. But a lot of the religious sentiments in here I thought were really wonderful. I myself am a Christian, and I see a lot of Christian themology in here, but also a lot of the commentary on what it means to follow a religion and to believe it and to want people to follow your religion, but whether you should go about that through force or if that actually is legitimate, that sort of thing. And then also just a lot of political commentary. This is a very political book in a lot of ways. It is also very, very character focused. There's a lot of commentary on, I think, taking care of people who are different from you, being afraid of people who are different from you, what it means to be loyal to someone, like how you earn loyalty, whether it's better to earn it through complete control or through taking care of your people as a leader and having them want to follow you. It's just got a lot, and I really, really, really loved it. Rowden and Serene are wonderful characters. Their friends are wonderful characters. There were some parts in here that made me cry. So yeah, high praise. I cannot wait to continue with the Cosmere. I loved Elantris so much. Then we have another manga series that I started. So as you can see, I've started a few series in this quarter. But that is Magus of the Library by Mitsu Izumi. I've said before that it's based on a novel series by Sophie Schwim, but I realized that this novel series is actually fictional, Kafna of the Wind. It's not real. So that is on there as like a nod to an in-story novel series. But anyway, Magus of the Library is wonderful. I've read the first 3 volumes. I love it so much. Our protagonist, Theo, is basically very much looked down upon and treated very poorly in his hometown, this very rural town. Kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It does have like a desert sort of Middle Eastern style setting, but he is looked down upon because he is different from the other people in his town. He has very, very pale skin, blonde hair, green eyes, and pointed ears, all of which point to him being half human, and I can't remember what they call themselves, and then half another race, which you come to find out doesn't have a great history with the humans. But all Theo wants is to read books. He loves books and he loves to read, but he is treated very poorly. He is not allowed to enter the library. Partly they claim because he's from the slums, so because he's very poor, but I think a lot of it is based on that prejudice against him for his physical appearance and his race. But one day, so Theo is living a very difficult life as a small child with only his sister to care for him. And then one day his life changes when he meets a Kafna. Kafna are the librarians in the grand library in the City of Books known as Afsak. And Theo decides, based on this encounter and everything that happens in the first volume, that he wants nothing more than to be a Kafna himself. And so that's where we go, starting in volume 2, with Theo going on this journey to become a Kafna. And so in volume 1, you learn a lot about his life as a child. You see the struggles that he goes through, you see what makes him who he is, and then you see him change things for himself and make a place for himself. And he grows up quite a bit by the end of this first volume. I think he's like 6 at the beginning, and he's like 14 maybe, or 12 by the end. Something like that. Like young teenager, preteen, by the end of this one. And then in volumes 2 and 3, we see him on his journey to become a Kafna and meeting new people and traveling the world, which, by the way, was so cool. Okay, so there is not a lot of world building as far as like explanation for why things are the way they are. We are getting, as we go further, more and more lessons on the different races and the history of this world, and like the big evil that was defeated in the past. So we are getting a lot more of that, and there is an antagonist who has started to pop their head into the story. But at this point, a lot of it is just about Theo and his journey. But when I say that we don't get a lot about the world, like there are dinosaurs that are just there. They're just dinosaurs. I don't know why, but I think it's fantastic. This world that Mitsu Izumi has created is beautiful. I have said before, I love desert settings. I love them. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a product of me growing up watching things like The Mummy and Prince of Persia and stuff, but I love desert settings. I think that they really give this opportunity for all sorts of varied landscapes. You have like the bleak desert, you've got beautiful oases and mountainous regions, and I love it so much. And the outfits that they wear, the clothes, the cities are just so detailed and lovely. So now I'm just gushing about the art style, but it really is gorgeous. And we have these like magical creatures. There are dinosaurs. I don't know. And then they're just like regular animals, and it's wonderful. But as I said, we're really getting into some of the world building with like the history and the past conflicts and the different races and the library itself in Afsak. But then Theo, just watching him, he is the most precious character. I've mentioned before, I like my good-hearted, good person characters, much like Prince Arslan in The Heroic Legend of Arslan. Theo is just so good. He's just so kind and sweet and good, and he works so hard, and I just love him. I love him so much, and I love seeing him make friends, and just it's just great. It's just great. I have the other volumes that are out, which I think volume 7 is the most recent one that is currently out. So I have more to read, but it's wonderful. It's amazing, and we have gotten through like the exam arc and stuff now, so I cannot recommend it enough. This series is for people who love books, who love reading, who think that books have the power to change the world and to change people's lives, because also that's in here, watching how learning to read and being able to get these different stories from different parts of the world and from different people outside of your own hometown can change you as a person and can improve your life. Oh, it's so good. If you love books, you need to read this. If you love coming of age stories, you need to read this. If you just love a beautiful desert setting with intriguing characters and plots and magic, there you go. It's fantastic. So then, I actually finished a series rather than starting another one. So I read books 2 and 3 of Guardian, or Junhun, by Priest. I had read volume 1 earlier this year, I think, and then I waited until book 3 came out so that I could read books 2 and 3 together. So this is a Danmei. We follow 2 characters, Zhao Yunlun and Shun Wei. So Zhao Yunlun is the head of the Special Investigations Department, I think is what it's called. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called, which is a group, a governmental organization whose job is to solve any sort of crime or incident that involves the underworld, or like the netherworld, otherworld. I can't remember exactly what they call it. I think underworld or netherworld. But basically anything that involves spirits, magical creatures, and so he is the head of this organization. And then in the first book, on one of his cases, he meets Shun Wei, who is a professor at the University of Dragon City University, I think is what it's called, which is the university in the city where the SID has their headquarters. So this does take place in China, but Dragon City is a fictional city. But when Zhao Yunlun meets Shun Wei, he realizes that he may be more aware of this other world outside of the like human realm than he should be. And it kind of goes from there. There is like, I mean, it's not really complicated as far as like figuring out some of the big reveals. You figure them out very quickly. But it is a Danmei, it is a romance, and just, I feel like parts of the romance as it was developing were really awkward and kind of uncomfortable at times, but I also really liked the characters. Zhao Yunlun can be a bit of a brat, but I still really like him, and I like the other members of the SID, and as you get into book 2, you start learning more about them and who they are, and I just think it was really fun. it's a fun series. That's what it is. It's not anything extraordinary. The writing style, like most of the Danmei I've read so far, and this, I'm not an expert, so this is not saying that all Danmei are like this, but I have read all of Mo Shang Tongsho's series, and then Guardian. So I've read 4 Danmei series, and the writing style can be quite simplistic at times. I think, I'm not sure if that's a result of the genre or of the translation to English. I'm really not sure. But it's just fun. It's just really easy to read. It's fun. There were some things that I did not know until I was told, so I'm not saying that like every reveal was really easy to figure out. And it, part of it was quite confusing, because you think things are one way, but then you find out they're a different way, and I thought that was really interesting. And I really liked in book 3 that Priest did something that MXTX has done in all 3 of her series, which is where after the main story you get these like short snippets, so these very short stories that take place post the ending of the main plot. And I really enjoy that. I really like getting to see these characters outside of all of this conflict, getting to see them develop their relationships, and it was just really, really fun. I really enjoyed it. I thought that the interactions with this other world were really fun. I liked watching the characters develop, especially Zhao Yunlan. Watching him grow and develop as a character in these 3 books was also fun. It's just a nice series to read. It's just fun. I enjoyed it. So that is a series that I finished. So I'm really happy that I was able to finish it. And I just liked it. It was just fun. It was fun. So then I started another series, which is Here You Are by Di Jun. This is a manhwa, so Chinese version of manga is one way you can think about it. Full color, really cute. It's one of the ones that's being published by Aloha Comics. This is the only volume that's out so far. And it's just really, really cute. We follow, I'm going to try to remember names, Yu Yang, who is a sophomore at a university, and he ends up helping this new freshman class that's coming in and meeting a new freshman named Lu Huan, who is kind of reticent, quiet, comes across as not very personable at times, but I think he's just kind of socially awkward. And we just, basically this first volume is just kind of setting up them getting to know each other, essentially. Learning a bit about Lu Huan and his family situation, seeing them interact, and that's pretty much all that's in this first volume. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really cute, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here. I don't have much to say because this is really short, and a lot of it was just, like I said, set up and them getting to know each other, but I think their dynamic is really cute, and I'm excited to see more whenever the second volume comes out. So then I did continue another series that I had started a couple years ago. I had read the first volume, and I, after a while, started collecting the other volumes, and then it actually finished this year. So when I found out it was going to be complete this year, I was like, well, I'll just wait till the final volume comes out, and that way I can have all of them and complete the series. So I did read the next 4 volumes, so I have these 2, then I have something else to talk about, and then I have the other 2. But that series is Given by Natsuki Kizu. So here we have volumes 2 and 3, and then, as I said, I've also read volumes 4 and 5. So Given, we follow the 4 members of a band. We have Uenoyama, Mafuyu, Haruki, and Kaji. What is Kaji's name? Akihiko. Yes. And so at the beginning of volume 1, Uenoyama, who is a very, very talented guitarist, basically a prodigy, he's a high school student, and he meets Mafuyu, who is one of his classmates, and Mafuyu has a guitar that the strings have broken, and Uenoyama fixes it for him. And then Uenoyama learns that Mafuyu is a very talented vocalist, and he asks Mafuyu to join his band. He agrees, but only if Uenoyama will teach him how to play the guitar, and then we just kind of go from there. So this does have romance in it. We do explore the dynamics between these 4 characters, but it is not solely focused on the romance. It also has a lot of character development and a lot about the band and then a love for music itself. So I just am really enjoying this series. I've heard so many people praise it, and I can see why. I really like it. There were some things between Akihiko and Haruki that I didn't love. Like, I know Akihiko was in a really bad headspace at that point. If you've read it, you know what I'm talking about, I hope. And made a really bad choice, but I didn't like, I felt like that was unnecessary, that particular, like, that it went that far, if that makes sense. I don't know. If you've not read it, you don't know what I'm talking about, and that's okay. I don't want to spoil anything, but I do really like these character dynamics. I really feel for Mafuyu because you find out that there is something, he has a tragedy in his past that involves his previous boyfriend and what happened to him. And as we go through the series, we learn more about that situation, and it's just really heartbreaking. But I really think Mafuyu and Uenoyama, honestly, I wish we got more of their relationship. Maybe we will in the last few volumes. We are getting some more, I think, in like volumes 4 and 5, but I just want more about their dynamic and their relationship developing. And I do think we're starting to get some of that. I did start volume 6. I have not yet finished it because I kind of put it on pause so that I could read my books for October, because Halloween is my favorite holiday aside from Christmas, and I have to read autumnal October themed books. I just have to. So I put volume 6 on pause, but I have started it, and I do think that we're getting more of their dynamic and their relationship development in volume 6, but there is, this is not just a romance. So don't go into this expecting it to be all about romance, because it is also very much about the dynamics between the band members and their friends, and this love for music and this deciding how you want to pursue music and what you want to do with your future. And it's also not just the romance between Uenoyama and Mafuyu. We also have the relationship between Akihiko and Haruki, and watching them kind of figure things out. And Akihiko's previous relationship, I don't want to say anything about that because I don't want to spoil anything, but I really like it. I think the characters are very interesting, and I'm just really enjoying it. So I plan on finishing it hopefully soon. Like I said, right now I'm reading October books, and I have a number of things that I want to read in November. And then at the beginning of December, it's going to be exams for my students and grading their second papers and their exams and all of that. So I don't know. I'll get to it hopefully soon and be able to finish the last few volumes. It does complete at 9 volumes, so I don't have a lot more to read. But so yes, those are volumes 3 and 4 of Given. I will hold up 4 and 5, or 2 and 3. So yes, those are volumes 2 and 3 of Given. I will hold up volumes 4 and 5 in just a bit. The next thing that I read is How to Solve Your Own Murder. This is the first book in the Castle Null Files by Kristen Perrin. My mom and I checked it out from the library, and then I started reading it. I loved it, and I ended up stopping at one point. Sorry, somebody knocked on my door. I'm not sure what that was about, because I think they were maybe picking up like tree limbs or something. I don't know. Anyway, How to Solve Your Own Murder. So I stopped reading this at one point because I was like, oh my gosh, this is really good. My mom would love this, and I would love to read it with her. So what we did was we took turns reading 2 chapters, and then the other person would read 2 chapters, and that way we could like talk about theories and stuff. And it took a while for her to start this because she was reading something else at the time, so I did have to wait for her to get to a point where she could do this. So I was actually reading this at the same time I was reading Given, which is why the volumes are split, because I did finish this between finishing volumes 3 and 4. But in this book, it is a cozy murder mystery, and we have 2 perspectives. The first one is a lady named Frances, and Frances in the, I think it's the 60s. Yeah. So in the 60s, when Frances is 16, she and her 2 best friends go to a carnival, and she is told a fortune from a fortune teller that she is going to be murdered at some point. And so she kind of becomes obsessed with this fortune for reasons that you find out. So then we follow Frances's perspective through her journal entries through the year after she got this fortune. But then we also follow the perspective of Annie, who is Frances's great niece, who 60 years later has become the sole beneficiary of Frances's estate. And Annie goes to the small town of Castle Knoll. This does take place in England. Annie lives in London with her mother, but she travels to Castle Knoll to meet with Great Aunt Frances and her executor about the will. However, when she gets there, they find that Great Aunt Frances has in fact been murdered, and so Annie is now trying to solve the murder of her great aunt. This book was so fun. I figured out some things as we went, but the big reveal of like the killer and why, like the motive for the murder, I did not figure out until like the very end when it was basically being revealed. And then it dawned on me, like when we found out who the murderer was, it dawned on me why, like what the motive was, and it was so good. I really, really enjoyed this. My mom loved it as well. This is the first book in a series, so the second book comes out next year, and I've already pre-ordered it. And after we finished this book, I did order a copy for myself because I wanted a copy since I loved it so much, and I had to take the one I had read back to my public library. But it was so good. It was so good. I really, really liked just the different twists and turns in the present day, but also in the past, and how we see those two timelines like entwine with one another and the effects that the past is having on the present. And it was really, really fun. Really fun. I really liked a number of the characters, and I'm so excited to see where this continues to go, what shenanigans Annie gets up to in the second book. I really, really loved it. If you like murder mysteries and you like cozy mysteries, I would highly recommend this one. I think it was just really fun because, as I said, Frances is so obsessed with her murder. So in some ways, she helps Annie solve it even after she's dead, because she has spent so much of her life afraid she was going to be murdered and taking steps as to what would happen if that happens, if she can't prevent it. So it's just really good. I really liked it. I highly recommend. Then we have volumes 4 and 5 of Given. I've already talked about this series, so I'm not going to talk about it again, but it just continues to be a really fun time, and I'm excited to finish it. And then the last thing that I read in the third quarter this year is Graveyard Shift by M.L. Rio. This actually came to my house on September 30th, and I read it that night because M.L. Rio is the author of If We Were Villains, which is one of my favorite books. I love it so much, and I have had this pre-ordered for ages. And so when I got it, I just immediately read it that evening. And I enjoyed it. So, okay. Graveyard Shift takes place in the span of one night and the following morning. And we follow... How many characters is it? We have... Edie, Theo... Hannah, Tuck, and it's not Theo. We have Edie, Tuck, Hannah, Tamar, and what's the other guy's name? Theo. Yes, it is Theo. Okay. So Edie, Theo, Tuck, Hannah, and Tamar. So we follow 5 perspectives. These 5 people live in a college town. They are all either students, or Theo works at a local bar. So they either work there or are students at the college. And they meet up every night in the graveyard of a local church that has been shut down and is still standing because it's a historic site, although it's very derelict. It's not cared for. But they meet in this graveyard every night for a smoke break. And one night, when they get there, there is a hole in the ground. And keep in mind, this church has been defunct for a long time, but there is a hole in the graveyard that has been dug. And the story goes from there. So trying to figure out why this hole is there, who dug it, for what purposes. I did figure out part of it very quickly. Actually, several parts of it pretty quickly. I mean, it's a very, very short book, but we do switch between the different perspectives of our 5 friends. And I feel like because it was so short, like I think Emil Rio did a phenomenal job of getting, like helping us get to know these characters in a very remarkably short amount of time. We don't spend a lot of time in each of their heads, but I still feel like I got a pretty good grasp of who they are as people. And I think that the mystery was really fun. Like I said, I figured out quite a bit of it pretty quickly, but I still enjoyed it. I still thought it was really fun. The mushrooms, kind of creepy. Now that I look at the cover, the mushrooms with the rat kind of freaks me out now that I know what happens. But I did really enjoy it. The only thing I will say is the ending. I personally am not a huge fan of kind of open-ended books. I like to have a concrete ending. However, If We Were Villains kind of has an open ending in a way. I don't want to say why. So does this one. So I'm wondering if that's maybe one of Emil Rio's things. And I didn't mind it. And If We Were Villains, I mean, I wanted more. Like, I desperately want more. If she ever writes just even like something this size, just give me more. I would love it. But I was okay with it in that book. In this one, I was okay with it, but I feel like, and I feel like maybe this was the point, the ending made it more freaky. I don't know what to say else other than that. The ending, I feel like, I don't know, there's not much I can say without spoiling the whole thing because it's so short. But I just feel like because of them, what they found out about the mystery and where it goes, hopefully there's a positive ending. Hopefully someone finds something to do about this. But will they? I don't know. Particularly because of who it ends on. Like whose perspective we're ending with. I don't know. But I like to be optimistic, but I feel like that's the point. This is definitely horror in some ways, or at least horror leaning. It's creepy in some ways, and it's not horror in that you're getting jump scares. It's not horror in that there is anything like horrific happening in the actual pages of the book. You just know it's happening outside of these 5 characters, like you hear about it. And then the ending, though, is like really kind of brings it in, and that's kind of, I think, the part that just makes you feel icky. Yeah. But I did enjoy it. It was really short, really quick read, but like I said, I think her character work it's just incredible. And I will read anything else that she writes and puts out. But if rats freak you out or fungus, probably don't read this. If insomnia freaks you out, don't read this, because insomnia plays a big part, because I mean all of these characters are, for various reasons, because of job, personal lives, whatever, they stay up late at night a lot. So if that's something that you don't want to read about, or just not being able to sleep, because that also plays a role in here, there's a lot for such a tiny little book, but I did really enjoy it. If you like creepy, like I said, I would say maybe it's more like horror leaning, because the horror is kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's like not in your face. It's not we're in a haunted house, or there's a killer trying to get us, or we're all being, infected by this alien species or something like that. It's nothing like that, but it's something horrifying is happening. Yeah, I liked it. It was good. Good book to lead into October, let's put it that way. All right, so those are all of the books that I read in the third quarter. Like I said, it got a little slow, particularly in September, because just of work and life. And the life things have all been good. It's just been a lot, except for migraines. Migraines are never good. And unfortunately, I actually had a migraine yesterday and spent pretty much the whole day on the couch. It was not pleasant. Anyway, so I really hope that I'll be able to read more in this last quarter. We'll see how it goes, because I don't know, work can just be overwhelming mentally, physically. I also struggle with sleeping sometimes, so also being tired can make it hard to read, make it hard to focus. I don't know, it is what it is, but I'm just glad to have the opportunity to read it all. Like, just anything I'm able to read and enjoy makes me happy, and as you can probably tell, this quarter was really good as far as me reading things that make me happy and that I enjoyed. I didn't really have anything I didn't enjoy. I loved all of it. So yeah, so that's always a good thing. But thank you guys so much for watching. I would love to hear what you have been reading lately, or if you've read any of these books and you have thoughts, I would love to hear what you have to say. Just please keep them spoiler free. Or like I said, let me know what you've been reading, if you have any recommendations. If you want to leave an emoji, let's do like a little raven or crow emoji. I think that's really good for fall. And also, we have our little raven on the cover of How to Solve Your Own Murder. So if you want to leave your emoji with your comment, or if you just want to let me know you were here but you're not sure what to say, you can just pop an emoji down there. Guys, I love talking to you all in the comments. It really genuinely makes me happy. So I love to hear from you all. So thank you guys so much for just letting me talk about the books that I love, because it really makes me happy to get to talk to you guys and to get to do this. So I really appreciate all of you. And again, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are having a wonderful day or a wonderful night wherever you are, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!